Dear students, we start the lecture asthma. About the definition of asthma. Asthma is a chronic inflammatory disease of the respiratory system, which is characterized by bronchial hyperresponsiveness, episodic exacerbations as asthma attacks, and reversible airflow obstruction. Patients with asthma, they have been subdivided in patients with allergic or extrinsic asthma. They usually have symptoms since childhood, and asthma is usually triggered by allergens like pollen, dust mites, and certain foods. As for second subgroup of patients with non-allergic asthma, they usually have symptoms which develop in more older age, more older than 40 years old, and they can have various other triggers such as cold air, medications, and exercise, and or viral infection. About epidemiology of asthma, the prevalence of asthma is about 5 to 10% in US population, and there is difference between the ethnicity. More asthma is more common in black than white patients, and for unknown reasons the prevalence of asthma has been increased over the past 20 years. These epidemiological data have been published in journals. About gender differences, the prevalence and incidence of asthma depends on the age. In younger patients, males are more, asthma is more prevalent in males. In more older patients, asthma is more prevalent in female patients. And allergic, as for allergic asthma, it is usually typical in childhood period, and non-allergic asthma prevalence is higher in older patients, older than 40 years old. About etiology of asthma, we should notice that well-known risk factors of asthma, they are atopic dermatitis, low social economical status, family history, hereditary factor, past history of allergens, and the main risk factor for allergic asthma, this is atopy, environmental allergens, allergic occupational asthma. And also we pay attention on viral respiratory tract infections, other environmental factors such as cold air, physical exertions, comorbidities, for example, gastroesophageal reflux disease, chronic sinusitis and or rhinitis, medications, using of non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, psychological stress, irritant-induced asthma. So that's why we stratify triggers of asthma or exacerbation of existing conditions. We stratify in two main subgroups: allergic extrinsic and non-allergic, environmental or intrinsic factors. Mechanisms of endobronchial obstruction in asthma is related with different parameters, different factors. First of all, bronchospasm, next is mucosal edema, and increased mucus production due to bronchial hypersecretion. And finally, patients with asthma, they have more narrow bronchial lumen than healthy people. Asthma is generally characterized as an inflammatory disease, actually, and T helper type 2 cells, they take part in the development of bronchial hyperresponsiveness. And initial triggers of asthma or exacerbation of asthma They have been divided in three main types. In the first type, bronchial hyperresponsiveness. Second group of triggers, these are bronchial inflammation, processes of bronchial inflammation, and the third group, these are factors of endobronchial obstruction. As I told previously, bronchial obstruction is caused by bronchospasm. It can be as a result of bronchospasm, mucosal edema, hypertrophy of smooth muscle cells at advanced stage of asthma, and increased mucus production. Pathophysiology of asthma, it can be divided in two main phases, early phase and late phase. At early phase, as I would like to explain by the example of part of bronchial wall. The red colored, this is red colored part. This is bronchial lumen, and here let's focus attention on dendritic cells. Dendritic cells, they cause releasing of interleukins from T helper cells, and then they trigger starting a cascade of intracellular events, and finally resulting in mast cells, hemoattractation, and degranulation. So mast cells, they are very important components, participants of this process of the bronchospasm. Mast cells, they can release a variety of chemokines. And finally, the result of these chemokines are vasoconstriction. And this is also increased vascular permeability, which leads to edema of the mucosal edema and mucus production. And as a result of above mentioned pathological processes, patients, they have narrow bronchial lumen. But at advanced stage, at a late stage of asthma, there is prolonged activation of initial pathophysiological response, and finally, patients are having cellular destruction. Some forms of asthma, allergic asthma and non-allergic asthma, they have specific pathophysiologies. For patients with allergic asthma, there is active participation of immunoglobulin E, and also, of course, participation of mast cells, degranulation of mast cells, and releasing of histamine, etc. But for patients with non-allergic asthma, we highlight irritant asthma and aspirin-induced asthma. In patients with irritant asthma, irritant enters lung, bronchial tree, and they increase releasing of the neutrophils, and it leads to onset of submucosal edema and onset of airway obstruction. As for patients with aspirin-induced asthma, using of non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, they lead to this trigger cascade of pathological processes, starting with inhibition of cyclooxygenase, and finally patients are having airway obstruction. For clinical presentation of asthma, we highlight different degree of different types of asthma due to severity of manifestation of clinical symptoms. Let's start discussion with mild to moderate signs and symptoms. In patients, in such patients, we usually find persistent and dry cough, and that cough worsens at night, usually after during excess physical exertions, or after exposure of triggers or irritants. Patients, they usually have end-expiratory wheezing, dyspnea. Some patients complain to chest tightness, chronic allergic rhinitis, and nasal congestion. Patients with severe signs and symptoms, they complain to severe dyspnea. You can find out pulsus paradoxus, hypoxemia, and we usually observe accessory using of accessory muscles by patient. And such patients, they usually have increased risk of pulmonary infection in chronic asthma compared with other population. And patients with cough variant asthma. This is a specific form of asthma in which the predominant symptom is chronic dry cough. Other characteristic symptoms of asthma are usually absent. Acute asthma attack. In acute asthma, what does it mean, acute asthma attack? Patients with acute asthma attack, they have acute reversible episode of lower airway obstruction that may be life-threatening. Patients usually complain to difficulty breathing, dry cough, shortness of breath, wheezing. Acute asthma attack can be characterized by different degree by the severity, and we classify patients. We classify acute asthma attack in three main types: mild, moderate, and severe. For this classification, we use clinical symptoms, patients' complaints, and the severity of patient complaints. And also we use objective signs. We take into account respiratory rate, presence of wheezing, presence and character of wheezing, using of accessory muscles, heart rate count, presence or absence pulsus paradoxus, and oxygen and carbohydrate. For objective examination, we perform palpation, percussion, and auscultation. Percussion, by the way, the characteristics of examination findings, they may not be present between episodes of uncomplicated asthma usually, but objective examination of patient with asthma during acute asthma would help to reveal hyperresonant sound, inferior displacement and poor movement of the diaphragm. Auscultation of lungs can find out prolonged expiratory phase with wheezing or dry crackles, decreased breath sound, sometimes in severe cases, silent chest, of course, tachypnea. In severe attacks, we can find out altered level of consciousness and cyanosis. Instrumental testing, diagnostic of patients with asthma is based on using instrumental and laboratory tests. Instrumental and laboratory tests, sorry. We use, we refer patients to spirometry. We check level of the FEV1, and patients with asthma, they have obstructive syndrome. Obstruction in such patients is reversible. That's why bronchodilation test will be positive. Next test, bronchoprovocation test. It is not mandatory for all patients. This is not first line diagnostic test. It can be used for some unclear clinical situations, if you would like to differentiate, to confirm diagnose. But Meta-Hallin challenge test, bronchoprovocation test, has several contraindications. Heart failure, pulmonary respiratory failure, there are contraindications. Chest X-ray is usually indicated in patients with severe asthma in order to rule out different diagnoses, for example, pneumonia, pneumothorax. In mild cases of asthma, chest X-ray is usually normal. At plain chest X-ray, we can find out signs of pulmonary hyperinflation, such as low flattened diaphragm, wide intercostal spaces, and signs of barrel chest. Here, I would like to propose a clinical case. This is a lady with asthma at advanced stage. We can see, let's see at the left picture, left photo, we can see signs of emphysema, lung hyperinflation, horizontal position of ribs, and widened intercostal spaces. Also, let's pay attention at the flattened hemidiaphragm and decreased lung marking. At the lateral position, we can see barrel chest and pulmonary hyperinflation, and pay attention on the prolongated distance between the sternum and vertebra. Other tests about bronchodilation test. Bronchodilation test is let me remind you that the cutoff level of bronchodilation test is 12%. Increasing of FEV1 after taking short-acting beta-2 agonist salbutamol, increasing of FEV1 more than 12% and more is considered as positive test. Patients with asthma, they usually have positive bronchodilation test because they have reversible bronchoconstriction. But do not forget about other tests. This is peak flowmetry. Peak flowmetry is a portative small device. It has in order to do peak flowmetry, patients they take a deep breath. Also, they blow out hard and fast. Step 2 and step 3 records their reading on the method. The decrease in maximal expiratory flow rate less than 80%. This is a sign of obstruction. But peak flow meter is a portable small device. It is individual device for each patient with asthma. Every patient with asthma must have this peak flowmetry, and peak flowmetry is necessary for self-monitoring or self-control of symptoms of asthma. These are different changings of spirometry in patients with obstructive pink colored and restrictive lung diseases. At the top graph, green colored, this is a normal flow volume loop and time volume curve. Look at this curve. This is normal in patients with obstructive lung disease, pink colored. We can observe concave flow volume loop due to increased resistance. Also, the absolute FEV1 as well as forced FEV1 relative to vital capacity is diminished. This is typical for obstructive lung disease. In patients with restrictive lung diseases, result in a narrowed flow volume loop due to reduced vital capacity and compliance. Absolute FEV1 is diminished, but not in relation to vital capacity. These are the three graphs. Normal comparison, normal results of the spirometry in healthy person, in pink colored in patient with obstruction due to acute asthma, and blue colored obstruction in emphysema. Patient with an obstructive lung disease. Typically, they have a concave, look at this, concave flow volume loop compared to healthy healthy people. Emphysema is typically caused a scooped out curve due to the collapse in small airway during expiration. So this is peak flowmetry in patients with acute asthma. Peak flow is lower than normal, around 5.7 liter per second, with a slightly concave scooped curve towards the residual volume. Next, diagnostic tests, pulse oximetry and blood gas analysis, ABG test. Blood gas analysis should be performed in patients with oxygen saturation less than 94%, for example, here. About ABG test, ABG test can help us to reveal patients with respiratory failure, and patients with acute asthma exacerbations, they initially have decreased oxygen carbohydrate and respiratory alkalosis due to tachypnea. But it's very important that rising of carbohydrate is a sign of respiratory carbon oxygen is a sign of respiratory fatigue and impending respiratory failure. Such patients, they are indicated to admission for intensive care unit. Workup of patients depends on the type of the asthma. In patients with allergic asthma, we refer them for laboratory testing, for antibody testing. We assess immunoglobulin E. It is usually increased, and antigen-specific immunoglobulin E. It is also usually increased. CBC count usually find out eosinophilia, and sometimes we refer patients to skin allergy tests. In patients with asthma triggered by infection, we find out elevated inflammatory markers. About sputum samples, sputum sample can reveal specific signs of asthma, Cushman spirals, Charcot-Leyden crystals, and Torqueola bodies. And this slide is demonstrating results of investigation of sputum specimens. Left picture, you can see Cushman spirals, Cushman spirals, and at the right photo, there are Charcot-Leyden crystals, both patients with asthma. Severe classification of asthma. Classification of asthma, for classification of asthma, we use clinical signs, the severity of asthma, frequency of nocturnal daily symptoms and nocturnal symptoms. And also we use results of spirometry. According to this classification, we stratify patients with asthma to group of asthma with mild intermittent asthma, second mild persistent asthma, moderate persistent, and severe persistent asthma. But how about results of peak flow meter? For peak flow results of peak flow meter is also useful and can be implemented for full classification of asthma. And you can see here the diagnostical criteria for intermittent asthma, mild persistent, moderate persistent, and severe persistent. Also, I would like to remind you about very useful diagnostical test, variability of for FEV1 and variability of forced expiration velocity and maximal expiratory maximal volume of expiration during peak flow meter. Variability is symptom which predicts worsening of clinical symptoms of asthma. And low variability, less than 20%, is a good prognostic sign. It is a sign of well-controlled asthma. Higher levels of variability, more than 20 or more than 30%, they predict poor prognosis and high variability of above-mentioned parameters, forced expiration velocity, for example, or maximal velocity of expiration, peak velocity of expiration. High variability means that this asthma at this patient is not well controlled or out of control. Treatment of asthma means includes prescription of symptomatic medication, etiological treatment, management of acute asthma, and long-term management. Etiological treatment is very important for better compliance. Educate your patient. Etiological or causal treatment includes avoid of triggers, allergen immunotherapy in allergic asthma, early treatment of infections in infection-triggered asthma, and in patients with comorbidities, for example, gastroesophageal reflux disease, we prescribe PPI medications. Treatment of asthma, overview of asthma medications is presented here. Patients, in patients with asthma, we use beta agonists, we use inhaled corticosteroids and other medications. How about beta 2 agonists? Beta 2 agonists, they have been subdivided in short-acting, subgroup of short-acting and long-acting beta 2 agonists. The main difference between above-mentioned subgroups, this is indication. Short-acting beta 2 agonists, for example, salbutamol, we prescribe them for acute management, as emergency drug for releasing of acute asthma. Long-acting beta 2 agonists, salmeterol, formoterol, they are indicated for long-term maintenance treatment of patients with asthma. These medications, they influence to bronchial smooth muscle cells. And second group of medications for asthma, these are inhaled corticosteroids. They are useful for long-term maintenance treatment. They are indicated for patients with asthma. Next group of medications, LECA-3 pathway modifiers, for example, montelukast, they influence to they decrease bronchial constriction and decrease level of inflammation, and they are indicated as long-term maintenance therapy. Other medications, muscarinic antagonists, biological agents, methylxanthines, mast cell stabilizer, oral corticosteroids can be used. But I would like to focus your attention on oral corticosteroids. By the way, oral corticosteroids, they are not first-line drugs. They are indicated only in severe and refractory patients with asthma. They have multiple side effects, unlike inhaled corticosteroids. That's why we try to we try to avoid of prescription of oral corticosteroids. We have to prescribe them in above-mentioned severe refractory cases. A few words about mechanism of action of main medications in patients with asthma. Beta 2 agonists. So this is beta 2 agonists. They influence to they stimulate beta 2 receptors on the bronchial wall, and they cause relaxation of bronchial smooth muscle cells, and finally they induce bronchodilation. About theophylline, these medications, methylxanthines, they inhibit phosphodiesterase and the conversion of cyclic AMP to AMP. And finally, they have anti-inflammatory and bronchodilatory effects. Next group of medications, muscarine antagonists. Muscarine antagonists, for example, ipratropium bromide or tiotropium bromide, they competitively inhibit postganglionic muscarinic receptors in bronchial smooth muscle, and finally they result bronchodilation. Leukotriene receptor antagonists, they influence, they counteract the pro-inflammatory effect of leukotrienes by blocking the leukotriene receptor on bronchial smooth muscle. Next medication, corticosteroids. During treatment of asthma, we focus our attention at inhaled corticosteroids. Corticosteroids, they are very important pathogenetical medications because they suppress T cell function, they decrease mucus secretion in goblet cells, they diminish recruitment of mast cells, they suppress recruitment of eosinophils. Inhaled corticosteroids, for example, beclomethasone, they inhibit transcription factors. Finally, they have potent anti-inflammatory effects. That's why corticosteroids, they are important pathogenetical drugs. But for patients with asthma, inhaled corticosteroids, in spite of, unlike oral corticosteroids, inhaled corticosteroids, they are first-line medications as more safety drugs. Mast cell stabilizers, chromalin sodium, for example, they block immunoglobulin E receptor on the surface of mast cells. And finally, they prevent degranulation and histamine release. Next medication, Xilioton, it inhibits 5-lipoxygenase, and finally it reduces leukotriene production. And new medications, monoclonal antibodies, for example, mepolizumab, they bind to interleukin 5 and prevents binding to its receptor on eosinophils, and this drug results in reduced eosinophil activation. Treatment of asthma includes acute management and chronic treatment. For acute management of asthma, we recommend short-acting beta-2 agonist, salbutamol. For exercise-induced asthma, prior to physical exertion, we recommend patients to use salbutamol. And for severe asthma exacerbation, we use algorithm of treatment of status asthmaticus. I would like to remind you to notice you and to repeat that the following drugs are not affecting during an acute asthma attack: long-acting beta-2 agonist, leukotriene pathway modifiers, methylxanthines, theophylline, mast cell stabilizer, and biological agents. This is very important. For acute asthma attack, we recommend short-acting beta-2 agonist. Long-term management of asthma has several principles. First, we aim to decrease number of asthma attacks. Second principle of treatment: self-monitoring of patients. Patients, they must be educated and take part actively in the treatment. As educated patients, they have better compliance, and patients, they perform self-monitoring. And the next principle is influenza and pneumococcal vaccines are administered in all patients. Pharmaceutical management means using releaser medications, in order to relieve asthma attacks, asthma symptoms. Patients, they are usually keeping in their pockets inhalator with salbutamol. Next, pharmaceutical management, controller medications, control underlying inflammation of asthma. That's why we prescribe additional drugs in inhaled corticosteroids. About short-acting beta-2 agonists, patients with asthma report and note frequency of using of salbutamol per day and high frequency of daily acute asthma attacks. This is symptom of not controlled asthma. And about inhaled corticosteroid containing controller inhaler for every adult and adolescent with asthma. It is very important for group of medications. And inhaled corticosteroids, they address the underlying problem of airway inflammation. So inhaled corticosteroids, they can decrease frequency of symptoms and risk of severe asthma exacerbations. So that's why we use these medications. Pharmaceutical management of chronic asthma depends on the type of asthma. It depends on severity of asthma. In mild intermittent asthma, as needed low dose of medications, we usually use monotherapy. Starting with mild persistent asthma, all patients with asthma, they need daily using of medications. We start with inhaled corticosteroids, and doses of inhaled corticosteroids depends on severity of asthma. In mild persistent, we use low doses. In moderate persistent, daily low dose of inhaled corticosteroids with a combination of long-acting beta-2 agonist. In severe persistent asthma, we use medium or high doses of inhaled corticosteroids in combination with long-acting beta-2 agonists. Monitoring. Self-monitoring is very important for increasing compliance of patients. Routine follow-up every 1 to 6 months, depending on severity. First, next, the purpose of follow-up, assessment of asthma symptoms and control. How to assess asthma symptoms. Patients, they must have peak flow meter and perform peak flow meter, assess peak flow metry at morning and evening, and fill in their tables in notebooks. Patients with how to assess level of control of asthma. Patients, they are answered to four simple questions: limitation of physical activity due to asthma symptoms, reliever inhaler use more than twice weekly, daytime asthma symptoms more than twice weekly, and awakening at night due to asthma symptoms. And according answers, patients answer no to all questions. We consider well-controlled asthma. Partly controlled asthma if patient answers positively to 1 or 2 questions, and patients answered positively to 3 or 4 above mentioned questions. They are considered as patients with asthma with uncontrolled asthma. This monitoring, self-monitoring, can prevent severe exacerbation asthma, and it can prevent onset of severe complications of asthma. and it is useful for outpatient setting. Take-home messages. Let me make conclusion. Asthma is a chronic inflammatory disease of the respiratory system characterized by bronchial hyperresponsiveness, episodic exacerbations as asthma attacks, and reversible airflow obstruction. The cardinal symptoms of asthma are intermittent dyspnea, coughing, and high-pitched expiratory wheezing. Symptoms of asthma remit in response to anti-asthmatic medication or resolve spontaneously upon removal of the trigger. Confirmation of the diagnosis of asthma involves pulmonary function test, allergy test, and chest X-ray. First-line treatment consists of inhaled bronchodilators for acute exacerbations and inhaled corticosteroids for long-term asthma control. Patients should be taught, education of patients, the correct usage of inhalers for self-medication and measurement of peak respiratory flow to self-monitor disease progression and severity. Severe asthma exacerbation can be life-threatening and may require emergency treatment and or hospitalization. During preparing for current presentation, I have used above mentioned list of references. Thank you very much for attention. We have finished our lecture, and don't hesitate to ask me.